Hey guys, Jocelyn here with Fantasia Elegance. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to make these very pretty braided hoop dangle earrings, and many of you did request this from my previous video where I was showing you how to add a patina to these with liver of sulfur, so check out that video if you haven't seen it yet. But I hope this delivers and you guys enjoy this video. As you can see, it's a fairly simple 3-strand braid, but we have dressed it up a little bit by doubling the amount of strands. And of course this design is useful for more than just hoop earrings. You can actually use this braid to set cabs and do all kinds of good stuff. So hopefully you guys find this video helpful and easy to follow. So as we get started, go ahead and check out the description section below for a list of the specific tools and materials I'll be using. You will need some pliers and flush cutters to get started. You may also find it helpful to have a round object like a ring mandrel and some masking tape. And as far as wire goes, we're going to be using 22 gauge dead soft. I'll be using silver filled from Rio Grande, but you can use whatever type you like, of course. Now you can make these earrings in different diameters. For a 1.5 inch diameter hoop, you'll need 7-inch strands of wire. And for those of you in metric, that's going to be just about 17.8 centimeters. And again, that would be for a 1.5 inch diameter. I'm going to be making a little bit smaller ones in this video. I'll be actually making ones that are 1 inch diameter. And for that, you're going to want just about 5-inch strands of wire. And again, that's about 12.7 centimeters for those of you in metric. So I will be making the smaller size. So go ahead and pull out your 22 gauge wire, and we're going to straighten that out. And we're actually going to cut 6 strands because remember it's a 3-strand braid that has been doubled. So I'm going to cut 6 strands of that in the 22 gauge dead soft. And they will all be 5 inches, which is about just under 13 centimeters, because again we're going to be making a 1-inch diameter hoop. So there we go. Once you have your 6 strands, go ahead and get them all nestled up together. And we're going to get them so the ends are all even at the same level. And what we're going to do now is actually bind these together with a little bit of masking tape. So tear off a short piece. You don't need any more than 2 inches. And we're going to overlap that about a 1/2 inch on the ends of all these wires. And just double it over on itself and smush it down. And then we're going to separate these 6 strands into 3 sets of 2. So I'm just splaying out the right 2 and the left 2. And we're going to start the braid now. So take your right 2 strands and bring them over your center 2 strands, and then pull the center one off to the right, and then take the left 2, put them over the center strand, and we're just going to keep alternating, taking the right 2 strands over the center strand, then the left 2 strands over the center strand. And as I work, I'm kind of using my thumb and fingers to smush flat the portion that I've already braided, just so I can keep, each of the 2 sets of wires lying right next to each other and everything is flush and flat. And you're going to see a pattern emerging where you alternatively have 2 sets of strands heading off to either the right or the left, and then 1 set of 2 strands in the opposite direction. And every time you're just going to take the outermost set of 2 strands from the side that has 2 sets of strands, and you're going to swing it over to join that lonely strand. And you're just going to keep repeating that over and over. And you're just being careful as you go to make sure that you keep both of those 2 wires within each set right next to each other so that it looks like a 3-strand braid, even though you're using 6 strands of wire. So just go ahead and continue repeating that process all the way up your length of wire. And it shouldn't take too long if you're doing the 1-inch diameter hoops like I am. And of course, as I go, I'm just making little adjustments along the way to make sure that the diameter of the braid is the same and there aren't any crazy bits jutting out, anything like that. So once you're getting up to the end of the wires, just go ahead and Measure it. Once you have a little under an inch, kind of between 3/4 of an inch and an inch, we're going to stop there. And now we're going to tighten up that braid. So I'm just running it with my fingers, flexing it first one way, then the other way, just like so. And that's going to tighten it up and make it look a little bit of a closer weave. And then we can take that masking tape off. You might need to rub the ends of the wires to get the sticky residue off. And then go ahead and splay out those wires according to the braid pattern right below. Just like so, and we should have about the same length of tails on both sides. That's what you want. If you don't have long enough tails on that other side, just undo your braid a little bit. And now we need to shape this to be round. So I'm going to be using a ring mandrel to just kind of shape these wires and the braid around. And I'm sliding it up until I get to the width that will just allow the braided portions to meet each other and have all the wires all the loose ends crisscrossing over each other. So you should have something that looks like this now. And of course you might need to use a larger object than a ring mandrel if you're making a wider diameter of hoop. So again, it should look like that with all your tails, and you might see there are two kind of central sets, these two right here. What we're going to do is bend those straight up. So take first one, then the other of those central sets of wires, and we're going to bend them straight up. So now you have two in the middle going straight up, and the others doing crisscrosses on either side. So that's what you want it to look like now. And we're going to start wrapping some of those crisscrossing ones around the base of those two going straight up. And you don't have to finish this off exactly like I do, as long as you get all the wires tied in. So this is kind of a guide more than exactly what you have to do. Okay, so I'm taking some of those outer wire ends and I'm just wrapping them around the base there. And now with these two, I'm going to tuck them down and through the braided portion and wrap them around some of those wires in the braid to finish them off. So I'm just tucking the ends through one of the spaces and pulling them tight. And I'm going to wrap both of those ends together, side by side, at least twice around that portion of the braid. And you might need to, finagle them with your chain nose pliers as you go to make sure that everything is staying nice and tight. And once you've got it wrapped around twice to your satisfaction and snugged down, we can trim off those ends. And you want to trim it off in such a way that you have enough room to tuck those loose ends so that they are underneath rather than on top of the braid. So I'm just tucking them right now with my chain nose pliers very tightly. And you always want to make sure when you're finishing off wire ends that there aren't any sharp, pokey bits. There we go. So I'm just checking with my finger. So you should have something like that now, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm going to take these wire ends. On the other side, we're going to just kind of mirror image it. So I'm going to once again tuck them through that portion of the braid and wrap them around that wire within the braid. I'm going to wrap them around at least 2 times. Again, tucking them under as needed. And if you get confused with which wires are going where, just do one side. It doesn't really matter how you do it, again, as long as you get the wires finished off and secured in such a way that your braid won't unravel. So just do one side at a time and then kind of study it and do the exact same thing except mirror image on the other side. So again, I'm using my chain nose pliers to really smush down those loose ends so that they're not sticking out at all. There we go. So now we've dealt with 1/3 of our wire ends. We're making progress. So let's deal with these other two. Now I'm going to wrap these around to try and secure those wires heading up. So let's deal with these wires heading up. This is where we're going to actually make the loop attachment where you can put your ear wire on. So I'm going to trim off all these ends so they're the same length and they have flush tips. And then bring out your round nose pliers. We're going to just wrap these in and make a circular loop on top of this hoop. And we're going to do that with all 4 strands, so both of those 2 sets of 2 that are pointing upwards. And if you're having a little bit of trouble getting those second 2 wires in the same round shape, you might need to switch to your chain nose pliers, just because the first 2 that we wrapped are kind of in the way for using your round nose pliers. So I'm just kind of making sure that all of these loops are the same size and shape, just like that. And once you have those loops put in, we want to secure those so they won't unravel. And we're going to do that with our final 2 sets of wire. So I'm going to just wrap them around the base, just like that. So you've got them heading off in opposite directions. And this one, I'm going to put through the loops that we just created. So I'm going to tuck those ends right through those 4 loops we just made. And just pulling them through. And once I do that, I'm going to curve them around so they're headed underneath now. So I'm pushing them around underneath and then bringing them up on the other side from where they first went through, and then we can smush down those ends, kind of hiding them inside of the 4-strand loop at the top. So with those 2 wire ends, we have really encased both the portion where the braid meets itself and where all those loops we made to add the ear hook, where all those loops come down and meet the braid. So we've wrapped that portion. And again, I'm just making sure that the ends are hidden. There are so many wires meeting this area at this point that you can really have a lot of different options for where to hide your ends and tuck them under. So now we have these other 2 strands, and with these I'm going to start wrapping them around kind of the base portion of those loops, and then I'm going to tuck them under, so headed downwards, and bringing them back up. I'm going to find a convenient place then on top of the braid to smush them down and hide those ends. So there you go, we are done with that portion of the earring. I'm just going to straighten it out a little, it got a little bit less round. But let's go ahead and take a look at how you would make an ear wire to fit on this guy, because you do need to make a somewhat specialized one to fit on all those loops. So I'm going to be using 21 gauge half hard wire from Rio Grande, and this is my favorite gauge and hardness to make ear hooks out of. I'm going to straighten that out. And I'm going to cut off about 2.5 inches. And you would cut 2 strands, of course, to make 2 ear hooks, but I'm just going to make 1 right now. And we're going to make a very large loop. We want it to be big enough that all 4 of those loops will fit through it. So I'm going to get the size on my round nose pliers, just kind of as a ballpark so I know where to wrap. And I'm going to go a little bit lower than that place to start my initial wrap, just so that we know this loop we're creating will fit around all 4 of those wires on our hoop portion. There we go, and we do want this to be a closed loop, so I'm using my chain nose pliers to just tighten that all down. And then we're going to take the longer bit of wire straight up, so it's going perpendicular to the loop we just made. And this is how we're going to be hanging it on the ear wire. So we want the portion that goes in your ear to be, again, perpendicular to that ring we just made, just like that. And then I'm going to wrap this around the end of a Sharpie actually. You can use any round object you like or just your round nose pliers to get that shape. So as you can see, the rounded portion that goes in your ear is perpendicular to the loop, and that will get the hoop earrings to hang correctly, kind of hanging front to back rather than side to side. So just trimming that off with my flush cutters, and I'm going to hammer this out a little bit on a steel bench block. This isn't strictly necessary since we're using half hard wire, but I do feel like this just increases the strength of the ear hook and is really good to do just to make sure that you're not losing your earring by getting a deformed ear wire. So I'm just hammering that out gently with a jeweler's hammer. And then I'm just going to file off the end so that it's comfortable to put in and out of your ear. I'm kind of making a rounded bevel by filing in all directions there. Checking with my fingers to make sure it's smooth. So we're going to twist this little loop open and slide all 4 of those hoop wires onto it. And that is how you can add an ear wire to your hoop earring. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, found it helpful and easy to follow. Feel free to comment below if you have any questions or ideas for future projects. Of course, I do have a lot more in the works, some of which was requested by you guys specifically from a previous video. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell icon to make sure you get notified of new videos. And one more note on finishing, I think this design looks really cool with an antiqued or patented finish, like on this copper one here, but you can do that on silver or copper as well. I have done a tutorial on that antiquing effect, so check that out in the upper right hand corner if you're interested in that. And thanks so much for watching, you guys, and happy crafting.